As always, Super Tracks moves around the country and quick. From Tampa, Florida, we go to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma for super modified mud racing. And we're just about to begin the qualifying session for the quick four drivers who will do battle in the Camel shootout. Remember, this is an 80-foot long pit of 36-inch deep mud. The drivers must complete the course as quickly as possible and then stop within another 80 feet. Rick Brickeye and the just passing through supercharged Chevy-powered Jeep CJ Funny Car leaves the line and will put down the first run of the event. He'll stop it in time in the sandy shutdown area. The elapsed time for Brickeye's just passing through entry, 2.27 seconds, and that'll be the mark to beat right now for the veteran campaigner from the south central part of the country. From the state of Iowa, last year's top 10 finisher, this is Byron Tinky and the Bad Habit supercharged 1932 Chevrolet Coupe. Tinky picked up 2 national event wins during the 1990 season and has looked even stronger in 1991. Tinky hard on the brakes. He'll stop it with about 15 feet to spare. The elapsed time for the Bad Habit machine, a great pass, 1.85 seconds, 1:85.7, and that will bring up the recent winner of the New Orleans Triple Crown of Motorsports. Larry D'Antoni, the Addicted to Mud entry, picked up his first U.S. Hobbit Association win of the year with this supercharged chop top 1932 Chevy. Good run for D'Antoni on the brakes. He'll stop with more than enough room in the 80 feet allotted distance. The elapsed time, good enough for number 2. 2.002 seconds. Melvin Brown and the rear-engine Red Heat dragster from Ohio next up. One of 2 different machines that Melvin Brown campaigns at every single U.S. Hobbit Association events. It all over and actually dropping off the left-hand berm in the shutdown area. Melvin Brown sitting in a rather unusual position, looking back to see the tracks and where they went. The elapsed time for the Red Heat machine, 1.95 seconds. That'll put him number 2, but here is the world elapsed time record holder, the 1.6-second Insanity Roadster of Milwaukee, Wisconsin's Jeff Acker, 2,000 Chevrolet horsepower. Acker on the brakes, the Insanity machine, 1.94 seconds will put him number 2. And right now it takes a run of 2 seconds flat just to qualify for the field. Next up, the wild Chevy love truck of Tad Rovat, supercharged power in a winged altered wheelbase machine called the Dragonfly. A lot of tire spin. Rovat hard on the binders. He comes closer to this qualification mark than anybody. Kind of unusual the way it fell down, and he was 10 feet away from it. The elapsed time, 2.003 seconds. He will miss qualifying by 1,000th of a second. Here's Ohio's Chad Miller and the always outrageous supercharged street roaster called Instant T. On the brakes, he'll stop it with about 10 feet to spare, but you can see a little bit of tire spin on the starting line. The elapsed time, 2.02 seconds. He will miss the qualifying cut by 200ths of a second. One of the more unusual power plant combinations in this sport, where anything goes except for street legal tires, is the Wild Cherry entry. A rear-engine short wheelbase dragster. Remember, these cars are limited to 140 inches maximum of wheelbase with small block Ford power on nitrous oxide injection. It is a handful. But it looks like more than just handling problems on this particular run. The Wild Cherry entry never had the power it needed. The elapsed time, 2.61 seconds. The next machine on the starting line is a brand new ride for veteran campaigner Todd Marion. It's a fuel-injected small block Chevrolet engine in the Expect No Mercy fiberglass Jeep CJ Funny Car. Beautiful new car. Marion all over the place in the shutdown area, but the car does pretty well for one of its first outings. The elapsed time, 2.04 seconds. You want close competition. It's literally a matter of thousandths of a second for these machines. As we continue qualifying for the 4 available positions in the U.S. Harvard Association Camel Mud Racing Shootout. And when it comes to super modified mud racers, just about any hardcore fan knows this machine. Milwaukee, Wisconsin's Jim Weber in the supercharged, fuel-injected, methanol-burning, Chevy-powered, American-made entry. 2 different times he's held the national elapsed time record. Last year, he finished number 2 in the world to 3-time world champ Tom Martin. Certainly, he was hoping that 1991 would be his year. Here's his chance to start that season off big. The number 1 spot, still Byron Tinkey's Chevy Coupe at 1.857 seconds. Weber, one of the masters at putting the power to the ground where it's needed most. Lines up on one of the most tricky courses in mud racing. A great run on the brakes hard. He'll spin it to try and pick up some extra room. The elapsed time for Jim Weber, 1.83 seconds. Number 1 qualifier in the quickest run of the event so far. But meanwhile, back on the starting line with the kill switch now connected that will shut the engine down at the finish line. This is the home state terror. Oklahoma's own Larry Jarrett, a past winner of this event 2 years ago, and the Locomotion supercharged Chevy machine. Wheels up for Jarrett, now on the brakes. He'll stop it safely. The elapsed time for the Perry, Oklahoma veteran, 1.91 seconds. The next man up will be one of the toughest in the division. Kansas City, Kansas campaigner Ken Crum. The Valvoline-sponsored supercharged Chevrolet rear-engine dragster that has been on a tear in 1991. He's got to go quicker than 1.946 seconds to bump out the Insanity Roadster. A great run. He bounces all over the place in the shutdown area. He felt that. Look at Ken Crum, his crew chief, coming up to ask if he's okay. He took a hit down there. That's the bad news. The good news is that he ran 189 and qualifies for the quick 4. That'll bring up the driver who was number 2 in the world in 1989 to Tom Martin. This is Jack Sturkin out of Holland, Michigan. The Ground Zero altered wheelbase Chevy S10 with supercharged small block power. Bouncing all over, the top end is getting violently rough. The elapsed time, 2.033 seconds, and the crowd can appreciate that from a small block Chevy-powered entry. Still, it's amazing how close this field is. But here's a man who wants to split it wide open. The 3-time and defending super-modified U.S. Harvard Association World Champ, Indiana's Tom Martin in the brand-new Super Trooper 1932 Chevrolet. 588 cubic inches of nitrous oxide-fed big block Chevy underneath the fiberglass body, ready to let loose. Martin really takes a ride down to the shutdown. These guys are getting beaten to death down there. The elapsed time for the 3-time world champ, 1.95 seconds. Martin, for only the 2nd time this year, will fail to qualify for a Camel shootout. What an upset. But here's the machine that Martin took to 3 consecutive world championships, the Mud Patrol 32 Chevy, with the new driver, Paul Schaefer, behind the wheel this year. The flashing lights on top of the machine telling the ground crew that he will be using nitrous oxide injection on this run. Carrying the left front wheel, a straight arrow run. He'll stop it in time. Schaefer records an elapsed time of 2.023 seconds. The entire top 13 are separated by only 20 hundredths of a second. On the line, Detroit, Michigan's Tony Ferrotti, the outrageous Let's Boogie winged 1927 Ford Model T Roadster with, again, supercharged 500 cubic inch plus Chevrolet motivation. a $25,000 power plant in a $15,000 chassis, cloaked with a $5,000 paint scheme for a $50,000 total package. On the brakes hard, a wild flight through the shutdown area. Ferroti had to go quicker than 191 to qualify. He runs 1.93 seconds. He misses the field by 200ths, and that will bring up Melvin Brown's second entry. You saw his red heat dragster earlier. This is Melvin Brown's Blue Max fuel-injected Jeep CJ funny car from Ohio. Brown campaigns a rear-engine supercharged Chevy dragster and a front-engine nitrous-injected Jeep CJ. But it looks like the Blue Max entry has more than its fair share of problems in the drivetrain department. The elapsed time, a disappointing 2.76 seconds. Melvin is happy he made it to the finish line, but I'll tell you what, the top four separated by less than 0.08 of a second. Our camera crews can keep looking up in the sky because they're going to be getting splashed more when we come back with the Camel shootout for those four quickest qualifiers. It will be a showdown for the championship bout with Byron Tinkey's Iowa Bad Habit, the American-made of Jim Weber, your local qualifier, Oklahoma's Larry Jarrett in the Locomotion, and Ken Crum's Incredible Wild Thing. Plus, the ultimate monster truck war. Stay with us. A lot of people may wonder why between the qualifying round and the Camel shootout in mud racing, the trucks aren't cleaned. Believe it or not, there is just about enough time for each of the four competitors to go out and wash these things down. But under U.S. Hot Rod Association rules, the drivers are not allowed to wash them down before the shootout for one reason. It's not unusual on one pass for a driver to pick up 10, 20, 30, sometimes even 40 pounds of mud on the vehicle. And if one driver had a chance to wash down, he'd lose 40 pounds while the rest of the competitors would be forced to carry that deficit. So right now, it's a matter of whatever you pick up, you carry for the rest of the night. And, of course, the four drivers in the Camel shootout coming out will bear the battle scars of their qualifying round efforts as we get ready for the four premier campaigners at this event here at the Oklahoma City, Oklahoma State Fairgrounds Arena to produce their best possible runs on this one-shot attempt to win the whole shooting match. It'll be Byron Tinkey, the first man under 2 seconds flat in qualifying. The Bad Habit Chevy gets to start things off in the shootout war. Tinkey on the brakes. The top end still mighty rough for these guys, but he puts down a decent number, 1.875 seconds, losing only a little less than 200ths of a second from qualifying to this run. Remember, one shot for the top four drivers, and the quickest elapsed time takes it. Tinkey's crew unhooks the machine. He gets ready to head for the pits while on the starting line. The past world elapsed time record holder, the man who finished number 2 in the world and the number 1 qualifier here, Jim Weber from Milwaukee in the American-made Chevy, lines up. He's got to beat 187. The ground crew signals he's on the line. The visor comes down. Weber takes one last look at the line. He wants to follow and lets her rip. On the brakes. He'll stop it in time. He had to go quicker than 187.5. He runs 1.860 seconds. Number 1 again for Weber. He just won't let these guys alone. Unbelievable. Meanwhile, on the starting line, it's the local favorite from Perry, Oklahoma, Larry Jarrett and the Locomotion. Believe it or not, every machine in this shootout round utilizing supercharged Chevrolet motivation. Jarrett, of course, no different as he moves in. 3 national event victories over the last 2 seasons. Jarrett leaves the line, takes a rough ride in the shutdown area. Had to go quicker than 186. He runs 1.90 seconds. 1.906. That'll put him number 3 right now. And the final driver in this Camel shootout is pulling to the starting line. So far, we've seen Wisconsin, Iowa, and Oklahoma represented. Here's Kansas's entry. Ken Crum and the Wild Thing, rear-engine dragster. And this guy always gets wild when it comes down to do or die on the final effort. He's got to go quicker than 1.860 seconds. on the brakes. A horrible bounce again. This guy has taken the roughest rides. Look at him shaking his head. He had to go quicker than 186. He runs 1.901 seconds. By 5 thousandths of a second, he'll take third. But the win goes to Jim Weber, the American-made Chevrolet from Milwaukee. One of his first national championship victories of the year, and the first in an effort to win the World Championship from Tom Martin. A happy driver and mechanic. Jim Weber, the winner of the Camel Super Modified Mud Racing Shootout here at the Oklahoma City State Fairgrounds Arena.